And welcome back to Coral Gables Now. Rodolfo just showed us what the city is doing to prepare its infrastructure for the rainy season and for a hurricane. And here to tell us what emergency crews are doing to keep you safe is Fire Chief Walter Reed. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Nice to be here.
So is there any annual training that city's emergency crews go through to prepare for the hurricane season?
Yeah, every year the city gets together. We put together our teams from the emergency management team that is in the EOC. We're a divisional satellite for the Dade County system. We gather together, we talk about the things we need to accomplish in the next hurricane season. We bring together our rescue recon teams, which are made up of the police department, fire, public works, public safety, and different other P&L and people like that. We get together and we do some training together. We're in the middle of training right now, doing some chainsaw training and reviewing our policies and procedures and checking our equipment. So we try to prepare prior to the hurricane season so we're ready to go if we need to.
And just briefly, since you did mention EOC and that we're a satellite office, it's really impressive to go up there and see that not all cities have this sort of stronghold that we have here. Would you say, and can you tell me just when you get together, the different departments that are involved, it's basically all of the city, and then inside sources, outside sources, as you said, FPL, and members from the county as well, right?
Right. We're a regional satellite, like I said, divisional satellite, and we actually have other cities that come in and participate with us. We have Sweetwater, we have Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, the University of Miami has representatives. So we gather all the different cities and businesses that we represent. They're represented in our EOC. We get together, we talk about the things, and that way when we all come together during a storm, we can communicate with each other and get the information out to the cities that we represent.
Do you, as a department, the fire department, do you guys stock up on supplies or anything like that during this time?
Yeah, about 3 months before hurricane season, which begins June 1st, we get together, we start looking at our supplies. Each department's encouraged to review what supplies they'll need in case a storm does hit. It's very similar to what we ask the residents to do in preparing prior to hurricane season. And we go through it. For the fire department, we stock up on our medications. We look at our water supply, see that we have enough canned goods in case we had to be self-sustained for a while. We make sure our generators are working, we have fuel. So we go through the same checklist we would ask the residents to do.
And the medications are just like some things that are common that you might need during emergency situations like that?
Absolutely. When people, if a storm hits, a lot of people have some medical dependencies, and we try to make sure that we have at least some of the medications necessary to carry them through the storm. We encourage them to stock up on their medications prior to the storm season, make sure that they keep their prescriptions refilled, and because we don't carry every type of medication, but we encourage them to make sure their prescriptions are refilled so that if there is a storm and say a department store or a drugstore can't get that stuff, they have it in stock for at least the 30-day supply.
And this is something I've always been curious about. You've got 3 fire stations and they're spaced out throughout the city, but after a storm, and especially in Coral Gables, we've got a lot of trees which could block roads. What do you do when you get an emergency call out and it's down south or up north or somewhere where you really don't have a station that close? Do you have any crews that are positioned before a storm and during a storm in certain locations or throughout the city to provide aid fast?
Well, we have the emergency management teams, and they're separate from the fire rescue teams that we have. Fire rescue, we try to stay in our stations, but again, Station 3, which is located down south, depending on the storm category, we may have to evacuate that station just like people may have to evacuate their home, which creates a little bit more of a problem for us. The rescue recon teams are stationed at the youth center, and what they do is their job is to go out and clear the main arteries and then start clearing the streets. So during the storm, hopefully we're clearing the main arteries so that the rescue and the police protection can get down south or wherever they're needed in the city. So we depend heavily on them, and every day after the storm they're out there trying to clear out those main arteries.
What do you guys involve yourself with? What are the main calls that you get after a storm hits?
Typical calls that we'd receive, we get a lot of power line down. The FPNL is very busy at that time. Their resources are stretched. They're trying to get help from different areas of the country to come down here. So in the interim, for the first 3 to 5 days, very short staff. So a lot of people are calling to let us know the power lines are down. Again, we have a lot of trees in the city, so we see a lot of down lines. And we have to treat each one of those lines as if they're a live line. We encourage every resident to do the same thing. Don't go outside if you see the power lines are down until we can come out and verify they're not live. So that's one of our primary calls that we'll get. Second to that, people will start clearing their area up. They want to clean it up, clear in the area so they can get in and out of their house. And we receive a lot of injuries from people who are not familiar with how to use their chainsaws or some other tools that they're doing. So sometimes they get hurt.
Yeah.
And the other ones that we'll see is if it's a prolonged event again and it's going beyond 3 days and we lose electricity, or a lot of the people that have medical ailments that the heat starts to get to them and they'll start calling us. So we see a lot of the elderly and people with medical issues be calling us in that regard.
Okay. And as we all know, hurricane season definitely not new to the city or anyone in South Florida. So it should be second nature that we prepare. And emergency experts are always telling us how important it is to be prepared and to have all those emergency supplies in order. But yet so many people just, I don't know if they just forget or what happens, but they do not prepare. What do you think happens there? Why? Do you think that we're just used to not having a hurricane?
I don't know that it's that. I think being from Florida, we believe we've been through it before. And that complacency starts to sit in. And I can remember as a child, I was going through hurricanes too, but most people forget that most of the hurricanes really didn't hit us. They skirted the coast, they went by us, with the exception of, say, Andrew, which was really a South Dade storm. So people believe they've been through the storms and they're less likely to prepare. And they're starting to rely more and more on the hurricane modeling. You see the hurricane models. In the past, the hurricane models had a line. Now they're going into a cone, which gives it a little more uncertainty, so people won't concentrate on that center line anymore. So I think a lot of it is complacency. It's people that believe they've survived a storm. They don't prepare like they should. And then, unfortunately, if a storm does hit, they're usually ones that get hit pretty hard because they didn't take the adequate protection and make sure the home was secured and they had all their supplies ready.
And going to that, the city is always stressing how important it is to be prepared and for residents to be to have enough supplies to take them through the first 72 hours. Why the first 72 hours?
First 72, like we had talked about earlier, that's normally when the streets are going to be clogged up with the trees and a lot of debris. We're going to have to get our crews out there. People aren't going to be able to get out of their houses if the trees are down. They're going to be restricted to their homes. For the rescue recons, again, their primary purpose is to get out into the different zones, clear the main arteries first, and then we go through the residential streets. So it may be a few days before they can actually go out and get some supplies. They may be without electricity. So what we're asking is, stock up on your water, get non-perishables, make sure you have batteries and radios because it may be a while before your electricity comes back on. So don't take it for granted that you're going to be able to get up and go into downtown Coral Gables and get your supplies. What you may be dealing with on the residential level is the same thing that the stores are going to be dealing with. Publix may not be open. They may not have any electricity either. So we're asking, please stock up for at least a 72-hour supply of your food and your water and everything else. Be self-sufficient. Don't become dependent because that's the wrong time to do it.
Absolutely, because you guys are all busy doing other things and trying to get the roads clear for emergency vehicles. Well, thank you so much, Fire Chief, for being here. For more helpful tips on what to do before, during, and after a hurricane, you can just go to our website at coralgables.com and click on the hurricane icon. And still to come on Coral Gables Now, we celebrate Father's Day, and we'll have those stories next. We'll be right back.